Hi, Mike Callahan here with the SnowPlowExpert.com. After getting back from the Green Industry Expo and the Service Autopilot Software Convention here last week in Dallas, Texas, there's a lot of things that I wanted to bring to attention to our viewers here. The main thing was the importance of tracking your labor and job costing. So a quick overview of what job costing and tracking your labor will bring to your company and allow you to run a more successful company. Here at my lawn care, landscape company, and snow removal company at Callahan's, we can go back 15 years and see every job we've ever done and see the labor start and stop times as well as what piece of equipment was used. So we were able to run reports and see, okay, if we're using a 50-inch or a 60-inch lawnmower on a quarter-acre lot with two guys, this is on average how much production area we should be producing per hour with drive time. And also in the snow and ice industry, we measure the square footage of all our parking lots. So we know if we have a 7.5-foot standard blade without wings, this is how much square footage we should be able to plow during an hour period. Or if we have a backhoe with a 12-foot box plow, we have a production rate of how many square feet that box plow should be able to plow on average for the season. So it starts right down to the sidewalk shovelers on your sidewalk crews in the snow and ice industry. So how many square feet can they shovel per hour per guy? How many square feet can they apply of ice melt product with a standard spreader? How many square feet in a residential setting can they plow? Or how many driveways of square footage can they plow? Or in a commercial aspect, how many square feet of pavement can be plowed with a pickup truck, a backhoe, a loader, and a skid steer? So each of these numbers per piece of equipment should be tracked separately so you can import them into an Excel sheet and come up with a production rate per man hour per piece of equipment. This way, when you're going out to bid a parking lot and it's a large complex and you may be able to utilize a front end loader with an 18-foot push box on it, you're going to be a lot more productive per hour than per se a skid steer with a 12-inch box on it. So you'll be able to recover the different costs for this loader at a different rate than you would be the skid steer, because the loader obviously is going to be a lot more effective and probably plow 3 times as fast the amount of coverage area or square footage than that skid steer. So once you really dive in and you track these numbers, you can back in these production rates and it'll actually give you a cost per hour, and then you can figure in your profit margin per hour on top of that. I suggest using a multiple overhead recovery system in which you recover your labor, your equipment, and your G&A or general and administrative costs separately. That way, if you have a job that is more labor intensive, such as sidewalk shoveling, you're recovering your labor rate at a different rate, which is usually more expensive than you have a job that's more equipment heavy, for instance. So if you own a backhoe or a front end loader that's very productive, you could recover that rate for the equipment at a separate rate, because maybe this piece of equipment is a lot more efficient and faster than maybe your competitor is bidding it out with a smaller piece of equipment. So this way, when you recover your G&A, your labor, and your equipment separately in every bid through use of a production rate based estimating system, you can become highly competitive in your market, and you may be able to come in at a lower price point, win the contract, but still be making more money and profit at the end of the day than your competitor using a lower piece of equipment that has lower technology or lower production rates. Something I always suggest is looking at different industry benchmarks to see how you compare it to the rest of the industry. An example here is the Lawn and Landscape Magazine benchmark issue. They do have benchmarks for snow and ice removal, as well as lawn and landscape industry that I know a lot of you guys are in watching these videos. Our company, Callahan's Lawn Care, was actually just featured in the Lawn and Landscape Magazine for the implementation of our piece rate system, and it's in the benchmark section of this month's Lawn and Landscape Magazine. It's worth a good read, and give you a quick synopsis of what this article is about. After going through a really rough divorce and a hard time in my life 10-12 years ago, I got away from watching my daily numbers and monthly numbers, tracking my labor, and looking at these numbers that we were tracking in the field, which we'd always done in the past. So our cash flow was so good at this point that the cash was coming in quicker than the bills. So it looked like we were cash positive and making money looking at our bank account. But in actuality, our expenses were exceeding our revenue coming in and we were losing money. But it wasn't until November or December that year that we realized, since the cash was coming in so good, that we were actually around $70,000 in debt for the season in a loss. So that's the importance of always tracking your numbers. Even if you have a highly successful company and you're making money and you're tracking these numbers now, you need to stay diligent and track them on a weekly and monthly basis. So if there is something going wrong with your numbers, there's time to react, fix the problem, and push forward to make that profit. The keys to doing this is using such things like this as the Lawn and Landscape Magazine benchmarks to see how much on an industry average your average hourly wage should be, how much gross revenue should be being created per employee or piece of equipment, as well as the integration of a really high-end software that allows you to track all these data points as far as a piece of equipment, how many guys were on the truck, and the start and stop times for job costing, and the ability to export that into an Excel sheet and adjust your prices accordingly. A lot of people in the industry tell me that, well, you know, last year we didn't make as much money as we thought we should, so we're going to go across the board and raise all our plowing customers an extra $5 to $10 per trip across the board. Well, that is absolutely ludicrous. Why would you ever charge an extra $5 to $10 per trip on your most profitable company? Because if you look at the numbers, you'll be able to sort them in that Excel sheet from the highest, most profitable company or customer to the lowest. So if there's a break-even point of, let's say, $120 per machine or per man hour in your snow and ice company, and you've got a customer here that you're making over $200 an hour on, why would you ever want to raise that customer's price? You're $70 or $60 more per hour than the line that you actually want to make at. So you'd always leave that customer alone. But if you're going to do a price increase, you probably would take the bottom customers that are below that $120 per hour and raise their prices up to the level that you need to make your acceptable profit margins. So by knowing your numbers and having the ability through technology to dissect what you're making per man hour on each specific job, it allows you for better job costing and profitability, as well as when you need to make those price changes, you can make an educated decision of where am I going to raise my prices and where am I not going to raise my prices. Obviously, if you have somebody that's a customer that's making you an extra $70 per hour above what you desire, you're not going to touch that price. But if you have somebody that's making $30 or $40 per hour less on average as a customer, well, that's time to take a look at that customer and see, A, are the systems are in place and being used in that property? What's causing us to lose money on that account? Are we utilizing the right piece of equipment? Is the operator being efficient? Or maybe is that property not even in our niche? If we're concentrating on small townhouse complexes that are set up the same identical way and we're using the same exact system, and for instance, this property we're losing money on is a large townhouse complex that is not standardized, and the system we use in there cannot be replicated just like the ones that we're really efficient at, then maybe you take a look at that and say, okay, maybe this property is not in our niche and it's not a good fit for us, but if we are going to keep it, we need to charge X amount of dollars more per push given the system we have in place there to make our desired profit margin and our goal of, say, $120 per machine hour. So in recap, a couple takeaways here that you definitely want to take a look at is you want to use industry benchmarks to compare yourself to the other industry leaders to make sure that you're hitting those same numbers, and that should give you a good roadmap to the future. Second, invest in a piece of software that's going to allow you to track your man hours, start and stop times and drive times separately from the job and with the job. And take a look at using a multiple overhead recovery system to allow you to be more competitive in your market, which will allow you to bid jobs and recover your overhead from your labor, your general and administrative costs, and your equipment separately, which will allow you to be more competitive on more labor intensive or more equipment intensive jobs depending on your cost for your equipment or your labor. Until next time, we will talk to you soon. Make sure if you have any questions to fill out the Contact Us page. And Mike Callahan from snowplowexpert.com. Thanks a lot.